Hello and welcome everyone to the new episode of Taco Talks. Here is our new opening for Taco Movie Talks episode 3. I hope that you like it. Um, Something that we drew up over the last week. And hopefully, it's something you enjoy and adds a little bit of flavor to the episode. So, we have a big week to talk about. So, welcome, ladies and gents. If you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. So there's going to be new videos coming out each and every single week. And definitely a packed week, a lot of different genres covered this week. Just a little rundown of the movies that we went over and any parts to skip if these are movies that you don't want spoiled at all. We have Lady, Snowblood, Network, Pet Cemetery, The Notebook, Dracula, Raging Bull, and last but not least, Young Frankenstein. And I've got to say, I very much enjoyed every single movie that I watched this week, and definitely looking forward to getting into some of these movies. And here's the old letterbox profile. So go ahead and give Taco Z a follow there as well. And the first movie that I watched on April 10th was Lady Snowblood, which is definitely the heart and soul and inspiration for Kill Bill Volume 1 and Volume 2. A lot of the story beats are pretty similar between the two, as well as the violence. Clearly, Tarantino was able to kick it up a notch, but for a 1973 movie, the violence definitely looked pretty great. It was something I was impressed with, something I very much liked. Um, not to sound weird or like a psychopath here, but the blood, uh, it looked pretty darn good, and I'm not saying that from a realistic standpoint, but it looked that crimson shade. It made it kind of artistic in a way, when there was like blood gushing from victims in a over dramatic, unrealistic manner. Uh, it looked pretty damn cool, that's for sure. And more than that, because I mean, we've seen, like on the last video, makeup and effects can be, off the chains good, but it doesn't make for a good movie. There has to be more there. And this movie certainly delivered on that. I'm just gonna take a little sippy of the Mountain Dew, wet the whistle a little bit. Um, but yeah, the story was really good in that aspect. Even having seen Kill Bill Volume 1 and Volume 2, knowing kind of the beats of the revenge plot, it's very similar. There's four culprits, so to speak, who have wronged the protagonist's mother, and she's kind of the personification of revenge and lives only to fulfill her mother's revenge, which is, very, very good plot wise. And even gave me the idea that that would possibly get, if it, and why ruin a classic, but if you were to make a sequel for Kill Bill Volume 1 or Volume 2, perhaps that would be an idea, something to, you know, run with. But the plot was really good. It kept kind of unraveling and letting more little bits of information go. I thought the character who kind of wrote the story of the protagonist was cool. Um, kind of saw it coming that he might be related to one of the four villains, so to speak, but not in a bad way where it's like, "Oh man, I can't believe they did that." It made sense plot wise. So I mean, that's clearly not a bad thing. Throwing in twists just for the sake of twist obviously isn't great. But I really liked how the plot unraveled. I think maybe the only issue I would have is the ending. It felt like it was trying to say something, like her mission was accomplished, so she served no more purpose and allowed one of the daughters to get her revenge as well. Like the story had gone full circle. She had done something bad to someone on her mission and felt she deserved what she got in the end. The but the weird part was when she was killing the last villain, so to speak, she kind of did it in such a slow manner that she got the storyteller to die as well. When that was weird. I would love to hear someone else's take, and also be sure to comment down below with any movie recommendations. I sound like I have marbles in my mouth. Any movie recommendations, any comments on any of the movies discussed, as well as your thoughts, especially on any question that I pose, because that's one I would like to hear some different takes on, because I'm not quite sure, and it's not clear to me at least, and maybe it is something that you thought was quite clear, but that's definitely why I would like to hear anyone else's take. But overall, good movie. I would be willing to argue that Kill Bill, both Volume 1 and 2, are my favorite, or what I would favor over this. I mean, clearly you can see Kill Bill Volume 2, 5 stars, as well as the first one I gave 5 stars as well. I think as far as an American made samurai film, I can't come up with any that are better. And Lady Snowblood is good. In fact, it is very good. There's certain elements that can't be what Kill Bill is, just technology wise. I mean, the effects were good in Lady Snowblood, great in Kill Bill. The plot, I think you could maybe give a slight edge to Lady Snowblood, but that's even debatable too. And the dialogue, I mean, it's in Japanese, so it's hard to really ever go deep into, you know, the dialogue because it's being subtitled for me to understand. But it's something that I've always loved from Tarantino, and he did it in a different way in Kill Bill. So for all those reasons, I mean, those are some of my favorite movies now after watching them recently on the rewatch. But a great movie, one I would recommend if you like samurai films, check this one out. And also check out Kill Bill Volume 1, Volume 2 as well. If you want to watch like a three-piece, like a movie marathon or something, three great movies you could watch in a row: Kill Bill Volume 1, Volume 2, and Lady Snowblood, either at the end or the beginning. The next movie we're going to get into is Network. And hot diggity dog, this is a good freaking movie. I wasn't sure what to expect going into it. I think I just saw the poster, didn't know anything about it. It's an older movie. It's before my time, so to speak. Didn't know the director. Didn't even look at who the director is. Not like I didn't know who Sidney Lamute was, or however you may pronounce that. I might be butchering that, but I watched Dog Day Afternoon, and then so short story. I mean, was just scrolling through the watch list, see, hey, what do I want to watch next for this week? Came across the synopsis of this movie, and I was like, damn, that's a fucking good plot for sure. If you read the plot, and I'll click on it so we can read it together. It's basically a broadcast anchorman is about to be laid off, and this has been his life. Doesn't really know what to do afterwards. He's an older man, and he feels kind of beat down by life. And I think a lot of the things that he says in the movie are probably the way that he's feeling, where he is looking at society in a different light, as though, the new generations are kind of doomed in a sense. And since he's going to be fired, he announces about a week, I believe, before he's to be let go, that he was going to kill himself on the air. And we have a lot of the characters, I think all of the characters either have a relationship with someone at the network or work for the network. So we kind of get this meta drama where characters are commenting on the events taking place. It's almost as though they're commenting on the movie itself. So that one, it's a little hard to explain, but it's a meta movie for sure. And I have to say, a lot of the characters, I'm going to go back to this film because I want to get some of the actors and actresses' names right. Okay, Faye Dunaway is having a romantic relationship with someone who was the director of the news network division at this station. The station's bottom of the barrel. It doesn't really have the respect that CBS, ABC, and the third other. They're fourth out of four. She plays her role absolutely splendidly, although I think you have to give everyone credit here. She could very much be the person who gets the nod as far as like whose performance stood out the most, or the broadcast gentleman who becomes basically like a prophet. Everyone stands out. There's a lot of a great lines to be delivered, a lot of meaning, philosophical meaning, and then you add the meta ness to the story, and it makes it a very heady movie, one that kind of keeps you thinking throughout. Howard Beale is the character. He is played very, very well. A lot of emotion, a lot of great dialogue done by him, and in monologues by him. He becomes almost like a preacher of television, but the movie in and of itself is kind of a critique on media slash television, especially, and says that like this is how the newer generation is being raised. You're going to learn more through television than anything, and kind of how the power of it has transcended what life used to be like prior to this new generation coming up, where people on television in a sense are almost just as powerful as world leaders, and the globalization of everything is making it so that the societal structure that we had previously is has completely changed. The landscape is different. There's not countries anymore, as one of the big execs says. It's like we're ruled by ExxonMobil, we're ruled by company X, Y, and Z. And I don't want to sound like a freaking kook or anything, but it speaks very much truthfully years after the fact. It's pretty nuts to think about. It might not be completely on the nose, but it does speak very thought-provoking thoughts and points. It's very poignant in making those points where, yes, there is arguably more power in media than there is in government, and people probably learn a lot more from television than ever before. And I think the one of the big plot points that I thought was really driven home, the movie starts, and I think time period wise this is accurate, but President Ford has had assassination attempts on his life, and in the end, obviously, spoiler alert for all the movies covered, but Howard Beale, who is he's basically a prophet spreading his message via the tube or the television, gets assassinated, where it's like the power structure has swayed to such a point where there's more impact by, or just as much impact by killing someone who is a prominent news figure than, someone who is a nation leader. And I think it has so much more to say than just that too, and there's probably a lot of points that can be made that I didn't cover, but the point, what I'm trying to make, is that this is a very philosophical movie and a very, very good watch. I think it's pretty different than Dog Day Afternoon, although it kind of both, they make very profound points, very well done, and has very much put Sidney Lumet, that's what I'm going to say this time. If I'm mispronouncing it, let me know. But put him on my radar, and someone who I'm going to definitely keep tabs on and try to watch more of his films, cuz Dog Day Afternoon was really good. Network was very good as well, and definitely films that I would recommend. Going on next, Pet Cemetery. It was a movie I definitely liked. It was a good movie. Loved the guy's voice. Oh, you don't want to go down that road. Very he was he was a joy for me to just listen to, honestly. Um Apparently he's from Maine, and if anyone is from around there, I would really love to know if that is indeed what people sound like there, because that accent sounds pretty much unlike anything I've ever heard before. But it's a great film, really good supporting cast, I thought. Like the neighbor was great. I thought the child who passes away, again, spoiler alert for all of the above. Uh that kid is really good. He's cute. He playing kind of a monster. It's a little creepy, a little Chucky-esque. It's not terrifying. He like puts on a mean face, but in that sense it wasn't the most believable, but it's like it didn't ruin the film or anything. He was really good playing the child, where there was like an emotional investment in him for when he got hit by a freaking truck, which by the way, and I know the whole plot doesn't quite go together. There was two kids, like younger than 18 kids, who got murdered by trucks on that road, and they're just like, there's nothing that is going to happen to like solve that. Like something would would certainly happen, I feel. And look, I'm not Mr. Plothole guy. That is not my forte. I try to enjoy the movie as much as possible. Sometimes I do get hung up on things. That is one example where it's like after that first high school kid got just slaughtered, which by the way, He was very good. He is one of the examples I'm talking about when I say the supporting cast is really well played. He's great. Makeup on him is great. Makeup as a whole, I thought was really good. I mean, he's on the cover of the movie poster, which is a pretty cool movie poster as well. He's really good. Someone you like even, and he's creepy. He plays his role very very well. But yeah, that road would be monitored if that place, unless they don't have police, which they have a high school, is going to be monitored probably day and night after that kid gets crushed on the road. Uh, whether that would prevent the small child from being crushed, okay, we can argue that, but I mean, parents would probably be putting like spikes down on the road. Like, okay, you want to drive fast on this road? Like, we have something to say about that. People in a town are going to be pissed if some kid gets his kappa detated by a truck speeding on a road. Anyways, enough of that rant. It was a good premise, obviously. I mean, Stephen King is the king when it comes to horror movie premises. It's like it it's the it's almost like Stephen King was able to take a time machine, like scrap up they're like these type of ideas that it's like why the hell didn't anyone else come up with that before him? There it's not simple, but it's just you hear that as a premise and you're like, "Oh, that makes sense." People can just relate to it. It's like, "Oh, you're stuck in a hotel for months, completely isolated. You start to go a little stir crazy. That makes sense. Oh, you can bring people back to life by like this sacred way, but they're like, does life stay the same after death?" There they're so understandable. They transfer so well where people can get it. That it's like, how the hell did Stephen King like scrap up all these good ideas? Clearly, he's a mastermind, and adapting his films to the screen have worked better, sometimes than others. But this one I thought worked really well, and the ending, which is something that he does get criticized for, was pretty well done too. Maybe there could have been a better ending, but I thought it was pretty good where I guess the protagonist ends up paying for his decisions in the end. So, overall, a good movie, a classic horror movie to watch. I wouldn't say it's one of my favorite horror movies, but it's definitely one that I would recommend. So, moving right along, and definitely a different movie than Pet Cemetery. We have The Notebook, and it's a solid film. I have to say that. Admittedly, I'm not the biggest fan of romance movies. They can be very cheesy, formulaic, forced, but I wouldn't say this movie is any of those things to a degree that makes it unenjoyable. I watched it before and I thought it was good I mean, I thought it was really good the first time I saw it and was like, "Oh, I'm sure I'm gonna enjoy this." But I was pretty surprised by how much I liked it when I watched it recently. And it had been maybe 7 years, maybe even more than that since I watched it the first time. So I remembered some of the plot points, kind of like the ending, like the twist, so to speak. And that twist isn't so much revealed in the ending, more that it's like these are the two old people are the characters of the story. So I knew that coming in, so there wasn't like a huge surprise there, and you know that you know what's his face. Don't you love when people are like, "What's his face?" Trying to. You probably know who I'm talking about. The lead guy not Amy Adams, but let's see it. Ryan Gosling. You know those two are gonna end up together, right? Spoiler alert, if you didn't know, those two end up together. Mucho apologetico, so so to speak. But yeah, I mean they're on the cover, so not sure if there's too much surprise there. But I thought the romance was great. It was done to perfection in my mind, and someone who is a more seasoned romance movie watcher might be able to argue what has done it better or what they didn't like about it. Nonetheless, to me, it was done really well, and you found yourself really invested in the characters, which is something where sometimes the conflict that gets manufactured by the two characters, it makes you start to dislike one or the other. Where in this, and some people might not feel the same way, but I didn't feel that. Where, what drove them apart kind of sometimes will make you dislike the two people in a romance movie. For this, it was kind of understandable, and quite frankly, no person, I mean, the mom was close to coming out unlikable, but no person is really unlikable by the end. Everyone kind of redeems themselves, which is something that was pretty cool. And it felt, I don't know if realistic, but it showed warts and all the love story, which is something I liked about it. And man, it's heart-wrenching at times to where you get to this was the beginnings and where their love took hold, and this is like how years later, despite all the challenges, they still love each other just as much and they won't ever give up on each other. Definitely one that choked me up a few times while watching it. Uh, which I'm not the biggest fan of, tearing up during a movie, but it was good. It was good. It made you feel real raw emotion. And, if it doesn't do that for you, I completely understand that you might not like it as much, but I felt like I was so invested that, just let the water works. You dig? But very good movie. Definitely recommend if you like romance movies. You probably saw it a million times. So it's not like my recommendation would be doing anything for you, but if there's a romance movie that you want to give a try, if it's a genre that you're not super fond of like I was, this might be the one that you can actually enjoy. So do try and leave any comments for any disagreements you had with me, or one that a romance movie that is that you would recommend if something that's in line with this for someone who's not necessarily a romance movie fan, but one that might be enjoyable, such as this one. Next, we are going to Dracula for Dragon. This movie could I could probably ramble about this one for the entire length of this episode because it has a lot going for it. It has Francis Ford Coppola. There we go. Nailed the Italian accent. It has a great cast. It has great source material, and yet it didn't. To say it didn't come together might be an overstatement because I still enjoyed it, but it's one of those movies. Sometimes people don't like movies that you really like, and you just don't get it. You're like, I mean, they must have watched a different movie. Maybe they found one of those movie video on demand movies where they make the title very similar to it. It's like Fast People instead of Fast and Furious or something like that. It's like I mean, how could you not watch Goodfellas and think it's not, how could you think that's not an instant classic? What have you? This is one where if someone said they hated it, I would get it. If someone said they loved it, I think I would get that too. And everything in between. There was elements that were great. Costume design, makeup, effects, even some of the editing, the the direction was really, really good. I guess the only thing, one of the few things where if you're like, man, Keanu Reeves killed it in this movie, I'd be like, no. I mean, that's probably the only thing that's inarguable about this movie is that Keanu was really out of place in this movie. And I like, honestly, there was a scene where he just dropped the accent, and it was like one of the best scenes by him. And it like I don't know, Coppola saw that, and I don't know why he wasn't like, yeah, hey, Keanu, like just don't try on the accent anymore. It's like it's not good, and you're better off without it. That would have been probably the best um message that the director could have given, because it just sounded stilted. It sounded, I'm not trying to slaughter the guy, but he was one of the things that could take you out of the movie. But there was like a lot, like, some of the dialogue, it was trying to stay true to the source material, but it felt weird, okay? It felt over dramatic, but not in a good way. Sometimes that can be good, like Evil Dead, Evil Dead 2, and any of the Evil Dead movies. Like the over dramatic acting really adds to the charm of the movie. And even in, the final movie we're going to talk about, Young Frankenstein or Young Frankenstein, the over dramatic acting by Gene Wilder adds to the character. It's like it adds to the humor. This, I don't think it added that much. And again, I would love to hear any comments, debating, commenting, disagreeing, agreeing on this, because I think this is quite a loaded movie. And, I think a lot of people could have a lot of different ideas or opinions on it. But like my review says, it's like maybe you love paintings of the outdoors, like you love nature, or like you really like a certain person and someone is going to paint them and they just fuck it all up. It's like you might still like the source material, or they paint something that's like super duper boring for you, but they use really pretty colors. It's like there is something there that could have made this great. And we have an example of that in the Netflix miniseries, where it's like we can see how this could have been done much, much better. But it wasn't perfected. And to have such a strong director on this, such a strong story, and such a strong cast, and the 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 effects, I don't know about the special effects so much, but the practical effects, the makeup are all really, really good. And it just doesn't mix quite the way it should. But the miniseries, look, if you want to see it done right, I think the miniseries on Netflix would be what you want to watch, because it adds so much to it. And maybe since it has enough air to breathe life into the story and to give motivation, background, explanation to certain things, it's able to succeed. But this, I don't know. I guess there wasn't enough time, maybe, to really do that. But I don't even know if that's the issue. I can't quite place my finger on it. It just doesn't quite portray exactly what it's trying to do. It doesn't quite land. It's not enough to not enjoy the movie. Clearly, I mean, it's a 6, but it's something that could have been a 10 out of 10, and it's not. So, I mean, but the miniseries, and this is just one example that I could think of, is in the movie. It I think more clearly can represent the allure that Dracula has on the person he's trying to allure, for lack of a better way of saying it. Like, it's intoxicating to them. And it does show that, but the motivations of the people being intoxicated and allured isn't really well shown in the movie, whereas in the miniseries it is, where there's a huge plot point where it's kind of shown that it's so intoxicating that it kind of almost it puts you into another world almost. In that, it's like when the redheaded girl is attracted to Dracula, it almost seems foolish. Like, it seems not to make much sense. She's very much promiscuous, but why does she go out to this specific spot? You know, there's a disconnect. I don't want to ramble too long on this without, having great points to make, but that's just my nitpicks with it. There are enough really great elements to where it's not going to feel like a terrible movie. I guess in the most respectful and best way possible, it is disappointing because it could have been great. So I would recommend the miniseries for sure over this, but you could watch both and kind of get an idea as to how you could fine tune some of what this movie's trying to do. But overall, 6 out of 10, and I feel like I've said quite enough about that. And moving on next, this was. Ooh, I love Scorsese. He could very well be my favorite director, although there is definitely a lot of directors I very much like. But this is definitely another great that I had only seen bits and pieces of a few years ago, maybe over 3 years at this point. And damn, what a movie I was missing out on, because let's say you like Paul Thomas Anderson movies, Phantom Thread, There Will Be Blood. This is one you're going to really enjoy, in my opinion. It's a character study of a very flawed individual whose circumstances are quite unique and quite interesting. So, just a little bit of background. And Jake LaMotta, boxer, around World War II time period. And this was the same time period as Sugar Ray Robinson, who is very largely considered one of the greatest of all times. Like, there's Ali. You could throw Floyd Mayweather into there. You could throw Sugar Ray Leonard in there. He is definitely, if you want to make that your Mount Rushmore, he's got that fourth spot on lockdown, a lot of people could say, including myself. I think he is one of the greatest of all times. And boxing is something that I very much like. So that was another thing that attracted me to this movie. And LaMotta is like someone who, if he would have been born before or after Robinson, probably could have been a perennial champion, would have been undeniably the best of his generation. But sometimes you're in the right place, but it's at the wrong time. And I think that I'm not quite sure, but I think very much kind of being blue-balled, for a lack of a better term, or frustrated for this pursuit and like this undeniable claim to greatness is what adds fuel to the fire of who this character Jake LaMotta is. But he's paranoid, he's belligerent, he's stubborn, he's an asshole, he's a jerk, but he's a human being, not like one I would ever want to be friends with, but nonetheless, I mean, he's exactly what you look for in a character study because he's so damn flawed that it makes it so interesting. And yes, he's an abuser and he's not necessarily someone you're rooting for or someone you like, but he's interesting. It's entertaining to see this person's life play out. And Joe Pesci, the Jake LaMotta's brother in the movie, amazing. I mean, he's pretty much great in anything Scorsese. Same with De Niro, but this movie is just done to perfection. Some of the directorial beats are just pure magic. And I say in this review, but it's as though some of the scenes are almost when you're watching them, it's like you're watching someone's memory of a situation. And you could make the argument that that is kind of the whole movie, perhaps. Is it's played out like it's someone's memory of what happened. Like the fights are very much shot in a way where it's not going for realism in the boxing scenes, but it is played out as though it's like this is how Jake LaMotta remembered it. And then some of the really intense and violent scenes are just, you know, everyday slice of life scenes are played out as though you're like a fly on the wall. And I really liked that change between the boxing events and how his life was presented. I thought it was really cool. And that direction was really, really good. And a lot of the stuff done in the ring was really, really good. There was, I think, two scenes. I'll make three that were standout scenes. The match against is it Janilo, I think, or Janiro? I think it was his name. I think that might be it because I was like, that sounds a lot like De Niro. But I think it's based on a real boxer's name because Sugar Ray Robinson was clearly real. That scene was really good where he just beats the shit out of him. And it's like his motivation was his wife saying that he was good looking and everyone telling him this and him just getting like really paranoid and that just driving him to absolutely annihilate him. Someone who was thought to be a really great boxer and there was doubts before that, but that motivation is what pushed him to just put in the work to beat the ever loving beauty out of him. And then I think it was the last fight between Sugar Ray Robinson and Jake LaMotta, where LaMotta is just getting smoked by Sugar Ray Robinson. He's getting his face beat in. That whole match was tremendous. And where he's like, "You never knock me down." That was great too. And I would love to hear people's opinions on that. Where I mean, he retired after that. Is it like could he not compete at the same level as Robinson? Had he been beaten so bad that he couldn't compete anymore? Or did he prove something to himself where it's like, fight after fight, I was able to knock him down. He's one of the best of all time, but I've knocked him down and he never knocked me down. So win or lose, it's like I've proved enough to myself and I can finally like end this tumultuous journey. That's something I would really like to know. Although he's the personification of, a washed up has been at the end, where it's kind of you get to see the rise and the fall because he is the champion at one point and he's pretty much lost everything by the end. Nonetheless, like, is that why he was able to call it quits, or did he have to for the reason of not being able to hang at the top level anymore, for one reason or another? I would love to hear your takes on that. Let's see. Is there anything else I would really like to say about this movie? Oh, the third scene that I really much liked, the third and final scene. Not that they are all very, very good, but I think the one where he gets into probably the worst fight with his wife, where he is like convinced she's cheating on him and she just plays into it. She like wants to rile him up and says that yeah, she had cheated on him with the brother, which I understand we can't all keep our cool when we're in a fight, but if there's one person you probably don't need to rile up, it is this character, and he goes to Joe Pesci's house and like, walks into the kitchen while they're eating dinner and just starts beating the shit out of him. And like that scene is so intense. It's so amazing. It's great cinema, honestly. And like those are the type of scenes that Scorsese can capture. It's reminiscent of the scene where Ray Liotta goes over to his not then girlfriend but wife's neighbor's house and just beats the piss out of the neighbor with the butt of a pistol. It's like that scene, but in this movie. Um, Definitely one of my three favorite scenes, and it's an absolute masterpiece, classic movie, must watch. If you like sports movies, if you like character studies, if you like all of the above, Scorsese, you have to check it out. Um, Definitely one of the all-time great movies. And our second to last movie, Raging Bull, and our last movie, one that I had just finished today, Young Frankenstein by Mel Brooks. And this is it's a classic comedy in every sense of the word, very witty. It's kind I don't want to mince words here, but it's a parody of old time horror movies, but it's not like scary movie type parody where it's not making fun of the genre itself, it's just using this genre to as a mechanism for comedy. And, it's a great mixture, I think, and very, very well done. It doesn't taint the horror genre in doing so, and in fact, it doesn't sacrifice the plot in trying to be humorous, which is something that makes it as good as it is. 4 stars for sure. I have nostalgia for this movie. I used to remember watching it in my basement back in the first house I ever lived in, and it was good. Gene Wilder played his part superbly. Igor was, and that this I don't want this to come off the wrong way or mean at all, but I mean he was born to play this role, and he is just he matches wits just as well as Gene Wilder, and all the characters are played pretty good. No one really drops the ball. Everyone holds up their end of the stick in this one, and definitely an amazing movie and one I would recommend because it it does I think what parody movies should set out the goal to do, and not everyone can accomplish this, but Mel Brooks is able to accomplish this perfectly. and very, very well done. 4 out of 5 stars. A great movie for sure. To end off this week's episode, I would like to go to the Reddit account, go over some of the posts that I have made recently, just to kind of see what your thoughts would be. Get some community action going on here, fellas and ladies. See what you uh, would say to these questions that I have posed. Um, so let's start it off. What do you think is the best actor, actress, director duo? I think one that I brought up, or two that I brought up, was De Niro, Scorsese, Leonardo DiCaprio, Scorsese. Those two combos I think are really, really good. I've seen more of DiCaprio and Scorsese and put that forward, but after Raging Bull and Goodfellas, and it's definitely one I would like to explore more. I would like to hear some of your guys' um, opinions on that as well. What's a hard movie to sit through? Length, the disturbing factor, whatever. It could be boring, it could be disturbing. Those are the two big ones. I think a lot of people length. A lot of people don't like to sit through. What is one that you had trouble sitting through? For me personally, I said Martyrs, and that is definitely the disturbing factor where it's a little bit after the halfway point of the movie where there's just a full-grown man beating up a full-grown lady for a long time. Just like it's like set to be day after day after day, and yeah, it's pretty sickening, honestly, and if you've heard about that movie, it's a sickening movie. That was the part where I was like, "This isn't." Even if you like torturous movies, like this isn't even. You would like torture if you like torturous movies. That would be the scene you would love. But like torture porn, as a sense, is what it is called in the circles. Yeah, like even that, it's just like this. That's not enjoyable. The third would be non-connected movies, aka not sequels, not in the same universe, so not like oh you would love Civil War and then like this Marvel cinematic movie. What do you think goes together really, really well? And I put one that, you know, not super. I don't know if it's the best opinion I've ever had, but really like Dog Day Afternoon, and I really like Dirty Harry, and like the vibe of the city because they're shot in very similar locations and maybe even the same city. Honestly, I know that Dirty Harry is set in San Francisco, although I think Dog Day Afternoon might be Los Angeles, but they're very close and clearly look very similar, and they're shot to look very similar and have very similar atmospheres. But I would love to hear better takes on that question. And last but not least, what are some movies you could seemingly talk about for hours? Because hey, if you'd like, leave a comment. Maybe I'll reach out to you and you can be a co-host in the future if it's a movie that I am very much wanting to watch myself. On top of that, if you made it here to the end of this video, be sure to like and subscribe. Also, leave movie recommendations that you would like to see reviewed and watched by me. I very much appreciate you giving this a view. And Taco is out.